In this tutorial, you will learn about the TestProject Java SDK. The TestProject Java SDK is an excellent resource for creating a robust test automation using the Java programming language. In this tutorial, I'll walk you through how to create your free TestProject account, download the TestProject agent, set up the Java SDK. You will learn how to write automated tests using Safari and Chrome, which is extremely easy using TestProject. You will learn how to navigate all of the excellent TestProject dashboards, which automatically get updated to create amazing HTML reports. And finally, we will put everything together as you learn how to create page objects using the TestProject Java SDK. So what are you waiting for? Let's jump into the tutorial. Let's go ahead and get you set up with your free TestProject account. By the way, TestProject is free forever, and in order to be able to get that, please navigate to the link in the description of the video. Once you navigate to the link in the description of the video, go ahead and click the free sign up button. Now go ahead and enter your name, email, and a password. Once you fill out all the information, don't forget to confirm your email. So go to your inbox and confirm your email. Once you confirm your email, you're going to be taken to a page that looks exactly like this. You have several options to go to. We're going to navigate to the TestProject platform because that's what we're interested in. Once you're fully logged in, you'll be taken to a screen like this. And you can follow the setup wizard. You can either record a codeless test, or you're going to create a test by coding. And this is exactly what we're going to cover in this tutorial. So we're going to go ahead and pick this option. And here you can see the very first thing that we need to do is download our agent. So depending on your operating system, you're going to pick the one that you want. I am on Mac, so that's what I'm going to download. If you're on Windows, of course, you'll download a Windows agent. And so then you go in here, you download it like this. Then we're going to open up the agent and we are actually going to go and install it. So you're going to agree. Now the agent is going to install. Drag and drop it to our applications. I already have an agent, so I am actually not going to do anything here because I've obviously done this before. And after you have the agent, you need to go ahead and start running the agent. So all you would need to do is open up your terminal and do something like TestProject agent. Of course, on Windows, you just double click on the application and you start running your agent. And you know that your agent is being executed because you'll see it up here, TestProject agent running, after this little pop-up finishes and tells you that the agent has started. So next, over here, you're going to need to grab your developer token. So you can copy this token and then we're going to put it into our environment variables. And afterwards, I will teach you exactly how to set up your SDK. And then after we've set up our SDK and executed our first test, we will now be taken over here into the TestProject dashboard. You can see that there's this wizard anytime if you ever want to revisit it, but you can close this and you can see here is the dashboard of TestProject. Over here, you see the homepage of TestProject. This homepage is broken up into several sections. At the very top, you see the recommended add-ons. Add-ons in TestProject are components that you basically install into your test automation and the TestProject recorder so that you are able to basically extend the functionality of your automation. For example, here's an add-on that allows you to do PDF actions, right? Look, various PDF actions. Here's a RESTful API client that was developed by the TestProject team, where this basically allows you to perform operations such as get, post, put, and so on. these components can either be developed by test project team or anyone else in the industry that wants to create an add-on for usability. If you want to view available add-ons, you can click on this button. And that will take us here. You can see all the add-ons that exist. If we want to search for different add-ons, we can see the add-ons here. We can see the add-ons that are installed, and we can even filter by element type. And of course, if you look at every single add-on, it tells you what it supports. For example, this one supports web, Android, and Safari, while uploading multiple files is supported only into web. Over here on the right-hand side, you can see the recent activity. This is just any recent activity that has been going on in your test project dashboard. And then below, you can see the My Projects area. The My Projects area is basically any project that you're working on. So maybe it's some web application or a mobile application that you're working on. You would come here and add it. We can actually do that right now. Come here and add new project. Let's say we are working on something like a simple app, and let's say this is a mobile application. And so now you can see we're inside of the simple app area, and in here we're going to have all of our tests. We're going to have all of our jobs. Jobs are basically builds, and here you can organize all of your tests by folders. You can add a folder here and call it smoke tests. And all the pertinent information for this project would live in here. Next, you can see the monitor tab. The monitor tab will show current executions where nothing is currently executing. However, you definitely will see that in the future as we are executing tests through the Java SDK. We'll see some information here. And of course, upcoming jobs, which are jobs that are scheduled that are going to be executed. Next, in the add-ons tab, you can see that we can navigate to different sections for the add-ons. In fact, we can come here and click, and we'll be taken to the page that you have previously seen before. In the reports area is where we will actually spend a lot of our time, and this is where all of our test automation reports come in. So whenever we're using the Java SDK, the reports will appear here. You can see we have the velocity up here that will show us the total number of tests that have been executed, as well as their pass, failed, and skipped rate. As well, you can see here the date. Then you can even change the graphs. This one will show you the distribution of your test execution. So this shows basically the agent, and this agent has been running on my personal Mac. And then also it will show you the platforms. So far, I've only executed tests on the web platform. Over here, we can also see some trends. So for example, we can see all of the different types of tests that we executed, and we can see their passed, failed, and skipped percentages. So far, all of our tests have been pretty stable, and everything has passed successfully. And over here, we have targets that we have currently none set. And down here, you can see all of the different reports that I have been executing, and these reports will come from our Java SDK. Next, we have the Agents tab. The Agents tab basically shows all of the agents that we currently have that are linked to our account. So you can see I have a single agent that's on my personal Mac. It shows the version, and it even tells me that there's actually a new version available. We can download an agent from here and install another agent on our machine. We can register an agent from here. We can also look at the agents that are ready. You can see that I have one ready because I do have it running over here. And you can also see the agents that are disconnected. I don't have any because the only agent that I do have installed on this machine is already running. And finally, you can see the integrations tab. The integrations tab can show you the documentation for the Java, C#, and Python SDKs. I'm sure that they're going to have more in the future. You can have the quick start guide and the API documentation. So for example, if you wanted the Java SDK, we can go ahead and open that up. And here is exactly how to set up the Java SDK. We're actually going to go through these steps together step by step. If you want to create an API key, you would do that here. Here you can set up webhooks and even add Slack integration. Over here, you can hook up to a cloud execution service. Over here, you can link up to Qtest, which will allow you for test case management. And down here, you can actually start developing your own add-ons. So here are the instructions of how to develop your own add-on that you can share internally with your team, or you can share it externally with the entire world. I'd also like to point out here the help area, where if you do need any kind of help, you can either go to the chat, forum, or docs. And of course, you can provide feedback and submit support tickets. And also, there is this, your personal profile available, where you can look at your account. You can have different kinds of users. You can look at your statistics and your iOS settings. Now, there are basically two ways to use TestProject. Option number one, for those of us that are looking to get started, is to use the recording tool in order to record the test and then play it back. And then option number two is use an SDK such as Java, C#, or Python and actually code our tests using all of the best practices such as page object pattern and so on. And so here I'm going to show you how to record the test, and then we're going to spend the majority of our time actually learning the Java SDK. So if you wanted to try and record a test, you would come here and add a new project. Let's call this project sample app and create that. And so now we're going to create a test. So we're going to come here, click create a test, and now you get to choose mobile, web, or code. We're actually going to do a web app. So then we're going to come here and add next. Let's do this is the application that we're going to be testing right here, and all we're going to do is type in the first name, so, and submit. So let's give this a name, should. Okay, that's the test name. And now we'll select our application. Of course, we don't have one existing yet because this is our very first project. And so now we're going to go and add a new application for testing. So we're going to call this one sample app. And then we're going to grab this URL. And we're going to add it here. And then we are going to finish. Excellent. So we've got our app. Let's click next. And now we can choose three options. We can record it, edit it, or start a blank test. In this case, we want to record it just to get you familiar with the functionality of TestProject. And so start recording. So what now you're going to see is our application opening up to the URL that we've set before, and you can see over here we have a test step recorder view. So anything that we do in here will be captured. So watch, we're going to come in here and I'm going to click here, and we can start typing in our first name, and then we can click the submit button and watch how the commands were populated in the recorder, and this is capturing everything that we wanted to do. And now we want a validation point to make sure that our application is on the right page. So what we can do here is come here, we can select this header come over here to the three dots, click those, expand it, and now we can add a validation. You can also see we can take an action on this. You can see that actually these stars are different kinds of actions coming from the TestProject plugins, so you can do different kinds of operations from here. We can do many kinds of validations, and we can even check for attributes. And so we're actually going to do a validation, and all we're going to do is to make sure that this text is present, right? Because if the form was submitted successfully, then this text should be present. So we're going to check is present and do that here. And so now you can see that a step has been added here, this step, and then it talks about this element right here, and we are going to save this step. And so now here's the recorder, and what we can do is actually run this test and see what happens. Pretty cool, right? And you can see a green bar here indicating that each of these steps has passed and our test has been recorded successfully. Now, what happens if you wanted to reuse that test afterwards? Well, that's going to be found here in your project. You can see that now we have a new test called should be able to submit that we created. And if we wanted to come here, we can actually edit this test, information about it. We can come in here and we can copy it to a different project. We can duplicate this test. We can actually click it, and that will open up a view showing us exactly what each step did. And of course, if we wanted to run it, all we have to do is come here, click the run button. We're going to get an option here to run this on desktop, and you can see the options that we have. We can run it on Chrome, Chrome headless, or Safari. You've already seen it run on Chrome, so why don't we try Safari? And we're going to click next here, and then we're going to use the same exact application URL. We're not going to be doing anything different here. And then we're going to click run, and we're going to see it execute on Safari. And if we wanted to see that these tests were actually executed, we can come here and hover over reports. In fact, you can see that here is a test that we just executed about a minute ago, right? You can see it's web. Here's the other test that we executed. And of course, if we wanted to look at it, we can just come here. This takes us to our reports, of course. And here it shows the report. Here it shows the test. And here it shows all of the steps that were performed. And we're going to do exactly the same thing using real code. And the last part of the setup is simply in setting up our environment variable. So we're going to come over here and open up our terminal. And inside of our terminal, we're just going to make sure we're navigated to the very root. So there we go. We're already there. And then we're going to open. We're going to open our bash profile, and then over here all we need to do is add our TestProject developer key. So you're going to need to enter export TP-dev token and then enter the value of your key here that you copied from a previous step. And furthermore, we're going to also enter this line of code to automatically set up our environment whenever we're using IntelliJ. And we're going to do launchttl set env. We're going to do our TP dev token to set that value. And then the value that we're going to pass is this value that we got from this variable over here. Then make sure to do file save. And now I'm going to copy this value here, TP dev token, close this, and we can check to see that it's working by doing echo $, and then the value of the, see that it shows up here. We can also do that in IntelliJ because sometimes IntelliJ has issues reading environment variables. We can come to IntelliJ and do the same thing, echo $TP-dev token, and then if a value is displayed, you know that it's correct. If not, you might need to restart your computer, or at least restart IntelliJ or your terminal. So, what is this TestProject agent that you just downloaded, and why is it so useful for us? Well, here you can see I've created a really nice diagram about what the TestProject agent is and what it does. Previously, what we had to do if we wanted to interact with, let's say, Selenium and Appium, we would need to download a library of Selenium using our POM XML. If we wanted to use Chrome driver, we would need to download an executable that contains a Chrome driver. If you wanted to use Safari, you would then need to download a Safari driver and so on. And if you needed Appium, you needed to install Appium inside of your POM XML and then be able to use it as well. The TestProject agent, what it really does is it wraps all of this for us inside of basically one nice package, one nice thing that we download and we just keep updated instead of updating everything else on our own. And so you can see here that we download the TestProject agent onto our computer, and then using the TestProject agent, we write code that then talks to the TestProject agent, and the TestProject agent talks to the TestProject user interface, and in there you're going to see stuff like test results, the dashboards, the builds, and so on and so forth, everything combined into a single user interface with all of your tests. And so that's why it's really nice. Instead of talking to multiple things and multiple APIs, we're only talking to one API that then communicates with our TestProject UI and put everything into a single dashboard. All right, so let's go ahead and get started writing our first TestProject test using the Java 80 SDK. So if we look here, you can see that we are in the branch test project of the repository that's attached with the source files. And this, you can see that this project is absolutely clean. So the very first thing that we'll actually want to do is go ahead and add a brand new package. And let's call this com.testproject. Fantastic. And inside of this file, we're going to create a new Java class. Let's call this a simple test. And let's add that. So now, in order to use the Java SDK, we obviously require a Maven dependency. So we're going to go to our POM XML and add a brand new dependency, which is right here from TestProject. And also we will add JUnit because we're going to be using JUnit 4 for our test automation. Next, we'll want to do Command-Shift-A and import. We're going to reload all Maven projects so that these two new dependencies get imported. And now we have our simple test in here. And now we can actually go ahead and wire up this test. So let's come over here and we're going to do Control-N and do a new test method. And let's call this test method should open. And then now we can operate just like normal, writing our Selenium WebDriver tests. So we create a driver and then we use that driver to perform the operations that we need. The main advantage is that we don't actually need to maintain any kind of drivers on our local machine. So what we're going to do here is do var driver, and we're going to need to create a new Chrome driver. And you can see that the very top one that pops up is from io-testproject.sdk, and that's exactly the one that we want, which is a wrapper around the Chrome driver from Selenium. So that's the one that we're going to grab. And we're in here, we're going to pass new Chrome options. And then you can see that our IDE is complaining about something. So we can come here and do Option Enter, and it's asking us to add an exception to the method signature. So we're just going to go ahead and do that. And you can see that it added a bunch of exceptions to the method signature. So now with this driver, we can operate exactly like normal and start navigating to a URL and performing different kinds of operations. So which URL do we want to navigate to? Well, we are going to be using this website right here. It's example from cypress.io. There are a bunch of different things that we can do in these examples. I really like this website, and that's where we're going to navigate to. So let's do driver.get and then pass in this URL here. And then we're just going to do a very simple assertion that validates that we are on the correct page. And for that, we can actually just go ahead and check the title of the page, which is right here, to make sure that Cypress.io Kitchen sync. And so we're going to do assert equals, and then with the expected value, which is going to be Cypress.io Kitchen sync. And then we're going to do driver.getTitle. Perfect. There we go. And so now we've actually written our very first test. Let's go ahead and run it and see what happens. So we just executed this test, and you can see that it actually failed. And the error that we get is that agent connect exception failed communicating with the agent. And actually that's because we need to start the agent on our local machine to be running so that we can actually use all of the resources inside of that agent. And so what we're going to do is come here and do test project, and we're going to start up our test project agent. So I'm just going to hit enter here. And now at this point, the test project agent, you can see that it's starting up. And once it's started, we can actually start using it. We can now take a look here, and we actually see that our test project agent is running. So everything is okay. So let's go ahead and give this another run and see what happens. Awesome. So you can see that now our test is running. It's pulled up a local browser. By the way, notice how we never installed any Chrome driver. And now we have a test that passed here. And if we take a look, you can see that our test was successful, and you even saw it executing locally. And of course, one of the things that we're going to want to do is make sure that we're always cleaning up after every single test. So let's go ahead and add a teardown. We're going to do a teardown method and say driver.quit. And of course, the compiler is going to complain saying that the driver doesn't exist. So let's create a field called driver. We're just going to say WebDriver because it's always better to code to an interface and not a concrete implementation. And then we're just going to reuse this driver field instead. Let's give this another run. Make sure that our browser starts up and stops. And here you can see that our test was successful. So if we log in to Test Project and we take a look at the Monitor tab, what we can actually see here is if we hover over, we'll see current executions, which there is nothing running. Upcoming jobs, there's also nothing running. And if we want to scroll down, we can actually see that. But also we can see these latest runs, and what we can do is see that on our agent that we registered, the personal Mac agent that I have, there's a project called com.testproject, and there was a test that was executed called simple test. In fact, if we come over here to reports and we scroll down and select our project that we just ran on, we can see that now we have a brand new job called simple test, and in here we have an execution that was done from our test, and you can see that here is the name of the test and here are the steps, and this was done for us all automatically without us having to write a single extra line of code, we were able to see these trends in reports inside of our test project UI. Furthermore, if you actually wanted to do anything with this information, what you can do is actually download the full report by clicking the download link here. And then this will actually generate a PDF report that you can send to anyone that you want. Let's see if we can write an even better test. So that was a super simple test. Why don't we try to do something a little bit more complicated and see how that shows up on TestProject? So what we're actually going to do here is just come over here, copy and duplicate this test. And instead of calling it should open, why don't we call it should type? And what we're going to want to do is just try to type an email address into this field. So first we're going to need a new Chrome driver. We're going to navigate to this URL, and then we're going to do driver.findElement by, we can do CSS locator. And actually it's really nice because we get the CSS locator right here already. So I'm just going to go ahead and steal that from here. And then we're going to do, of course, send keys. And how about we do test at test.com. And then how about we assert that we were actually able to type. So we are going to assert that we were able to type in the email. So I'm going to grab this email here and put it in here. And then how are we going to assert that we were able to do that? Well, we're going to need this element here again. We're going to do find element, and then let's see how we're going to extract the value from here. And so we do test at test.com, and then we inspect this element. What we can actually see is that this is not a text that's being passed in here, but it is we can come here and do $0 and then do something like value. Oh, there it is. See that? You can see that this is a value of the element. And so, yeah, when we do that, you can see what it returns. So we can come back to our test and do driver.findElement by CSS selector and do get attribute. And we're going to in here do value. There you go. Let's see if that works out. So you can see our test executed extremely quickly, but you do see that it did pass, and our should type test did pass. Now let's just go ahead and clean it up in here, because this, as you saw, there was a lot of duplication. So one of the things that we can absolutely do is add a setup method. So let's come here and do setup methods. And in here, all we're really going to do is this, so that we're not duplicating this everywhere. Put that in there and get rid of it from here as well. And also we obviously can even get this out of there, removing all of the duplication, making our test extra clean. Get rid of this as well. And we can even clean up this test below by stopping the duplication of the typing. So what we can do is put this into an element and do var input field equals to driver.findElement, and then using our input field we can do the rest of the operation. So let me steal these operations from here, take all of this and put them here. Perfect. Input field is send keys. And then down here, of course, we can just get rid of all of this and do input field dot get attribute and value. And so that should be great. And of course, you can see that our IDE is complaining, saying that these are no longer necessary. So we're just going to do option enter and remove all of these unnecessary exceptions. Excellent. And no exception needs to be even thrown here either. Fantastic. And so all of this is taken care of. Let's go ahead and run both of our tests and now see what happens. So we're running the class here instead. And so now you can see that we're actually going to execute two tests, should open and should type. And then we'll jump back into the test project dashboard and see how that is displayed in there. Okay, fantastic. So two tests passed. Let's jump back into the dashboard and see what happened. So let's take a look at our dashboard here. So what we can see is we now have multiple tests under our simple test job. You can see that we have one here, which is our should type test. And you can see we have this setup test, which is actually coming from our setup method. And so we need to fix this because you can see in our setup we were doing a navigate, and so now it appears up here. And then over here we have our should type method. You can see that we find an element by this CSS selector. So now you can see how that looks. You can see we're typing in this string into that same selector, and then we are getting action email attribute. You can see here, and here's the input that we're looking for, which is the value, and here is the output. You can see that it's test@test.com. So very useful, very intuitive report. All we need to do is fix the separation of the setup from the actual test. And if we come over here, we can see the exact same thing. We can even see the browser, and we can see the success status. So let's go ahead and fix that problem with this, and all we have to do is remove this and put this into our actual test. So we'll throw that in here, and then we'll also put that in here. And so now that will fix this. And let's take this to the next level and do some cross-browser testing. Why not test it on Safari driver? Because I'm on a Mac, I already have Safari browser downloaded and available. So what if we write a Safari test? Let's see how simple that can be. I'm gonna copy and paste this, and let's call this Safari test. And then we're gonna go, yes, add that to source control. And so now you can see we have our Safari test, and all we have to do here is, instead of Chrome driver, we just have to use Safari driver. So let's go ahead and get rid of all of this, and we're gonna do new Safari driver and pass in new Safari options. And then that's it. And so you can see we automatically got this import up here for Safari options, and now we're using Safari driver. We didn't need to download anything. That's the beauty of TestProject, because everything is stored inside of the agent, and the SDK provides us access to that driver that lives inside of the agent. And so now we can actually go ahead, come here, right click, and do run Safari test. And now these should actually go ahead and execute on Safari. So you saw that one of the URLs opened up, and now we see a totally different URL opening up. There we go. You even saw it type it in, and now we see here that two tests have successfully completed. We can go over to our dashboard and see how those look. Let's refresh this. And now check it out. We actually got a brand new job here now called Safari test. So we have simple test where we were doing Chrome, and we have Safari test where we are now doing Safari. So you can see our Safari tests. See that they're being executed on the Safari browser. So we got one here and one here, and both of them are looking absolutely correct. No more setup. And here's the more complicated one to look at. You can see our should type, navigate to the URL, find the element, type test@test.com, and then assert that we got the appropriate attribute. And so now we just ran our test on Chrome and Safari. So what if you wanted to set your own project name and job name and didn't want to use the defaults that TestProject automatically provides? Well, you can do that really easily in the constructor of the driver that you want. So here you can see I created a brand new class called custom names test. And then in here, we can start passing in some parameters. So the very first one that we're going to pass in is the project name. So the project name that we can call is, let's say, sample project. And then the next one is the job name. So how about we call it a new job, just like that. And so now let's go ahead and run this and see the output of that. So that's going to go ahead and start executing. So you can see that here, if we come to the monitor and hover over, you can see that now we have a new job that's being executed. You can see that's showing there. If there were upcoming jobs, we'd see that as well. In fact, I can click on the monitor tab. You can see we had one online agent for a second. And now if I scroll down and refresh this, you can actually see that now we have a sample project and we have a new job that executed. And if we come here to reports, we see a sample project in here with 2 executions, which is exactly what we expected. We have our new job, and down here you can see both of our tests that executed. So this test should type, and this test should open. What if we wanted to try the same exact tests using JUnit 5, the latest version of JUnit? Well, we can do that as well. So let's take a look here, pull up our terminal and do. So we're currently in this test project JUnit 5 branch. You can see all the code is exactly as it was before. What I'm actually going to do is just get rid of both of these tests because they are not necessary for these purposes. I am going to rename this to, let's change our project. Let's call it JUnit 5. And the job name will be, how about JUnit 5 job? Just like that. And so now we have our test. And of course, we need to replace JUnit 4 with JUnit 5. So we can come over here to mavenrepository.com, search for JUnit. Here, the very first result is JUnit Jupyter API. This is the one that we want. And you can see here that we have several versions. This one is a release candidate, so we don't really want to use this one. Instead, what we can do is use this version right here that's released and stable. So I'm gonna grab this one here and copy that. And we will come to our POM XML. And then we're gonna replace this dependency here with JUnit 5. And then you can see this is in red because we need to reload our Maven project. So we're going to do Command-Shift-A and reload all Maven projects. Give that a second. You can see the red has disappeared. And now here, of course, this is complaining about this imports not existing because those are from JUnit 4. So instead, we're going to get rid of them and we're going to update stuff here. So the before hook now in JUnit 5 is called before each. I like that name much better. The after is called an after each. So you can see, by the way, the imports happening up here. The test is fine, and instead we just need to import class. You can see we just imported JUnit Jupyter API.test. And then the assertions, actually, we can get rid of this, and we can get rid of this. And instead, we're going to use static import. So you can see here, our IDE is helping us. We can just simply do Option Enter, and then we're just going to import static method. Look what happens at the top. Check out this static import up here, and that allows us to not even need to use the assert equals. Instead, we can just use this here instead. Fantastic. And that is pretty much all the changes that we need to make. Let's go ahead and run these tests and see exactly what happens. Fantastic. So we can see here that the tests are running. They're running in Safari. Let's go ahead and take a look at TestProject. Of course, we're going to see some tests being executed in the Monitor tab. You can see JUnit 5 job is being executed. And then we're going to come to our reports. The reports are going to take a moment to load. You can see that our tests have passed successfully up here. And if we scroll down, you can see our project. Our JUnit 5 project is right here. 2 executions, right? Exactly 2 tests. And so now you can see JUnit 5. Here's our JUnit 5 job. And inside of here, of course, you're going to see each of the tests, which look exactly as before. Here's our test. Here's all the steps. And here is the other test should open. And here are those test steps. So congratulations. We can now do this in JUnit 5 as well. So what if you wanted to get advanced and start following the real automation best practices, such as using the page object pattern? Well, in that case, let's go ahead and create a test and see exactly how that would look. So we're going to get a new test method, and let's call this one should fill out the form, because we are going to be working on this application that we've previously played with. And here we're just gonna fill out the first name, click submit, and then make sure that the page goes to the correct page. And so we're gonna use acceptance test driven automation here to code out our test, and I will explain it along the way. So what's the very first thing we need? Well, we need a page object, right? So let's call this sprint 1 page. So I'm gonna say sprint 1 page. We're gonna get a new sprint 1, not a spring, but a sprint. And then we're gonna pass in our driver. Excellent. So then using that sprint 1 page, what are we going to do with it? We're going to fill out the form. And then we're going to pass in, let's say, a name. Excellent. And then after we fill out form, we want to submit it. So why don't we say fill out form and submit? That'll be better. And then we just are going to need our assertion. And here we're going to do a new home page. We're going to do a driver and then do that is visible. Just like that. Okay. So here we've basically defined a skeleton of our test, saying we're going to be using a sprint 1 page to fill out the form and submit it, and then assert that the home page is visible. And here the IDE is actually saying that this is deprecated. So let's go ahead and use a better API. There you go. I updated it. I actually was using the wrong import up here. I was using Spring Framework instead of JUnit Jupyter. So I I did this import up there, and then I started using the assertions class. And so now everything looks okay. And so, of course, our compiler is complaining that none of these objects exist. So let's go ahead and create them. I'm going to create a class. Yeah, let's throw it in there, no problem. Yes, that'll take a web driver, and we'll just do here this. Of course, our compiler is going to complain saying that this doesn't exist. So let's go ahead and create that field. Yup, web driver does not need to be final. Excellent. Now, of course, it doesn't have this method, so let's go ahead and create it. And string, this will be name. And now we need to do this. Let's go and inspect. So this has an input. It has a name, so we can do it by class name. Let's see here. We can use Control F to find, let's see, by type. It's first name, just like that. There you go. So that'll work. We can just use this XPath here by first name, and then the other one has an ID submit form. So we'll do that. So there you go. And then we just need to send keys, and that's going to be the name. And then we're going to do driver.findElement. Had an ID, and that ID was submit form. Perfect. And so we've submitted form, and now we just need a new home page. Yes, it'll take in a driver. Good. It doesn't need to be final. Excellent. And then we need a isVisible method. Let's create an isVisible method. And this one will, just for simplicity's sake, we'll do something really simple. How about we do return driver.getURL, and we'll say is equal to. Actually, no, we get current URL, we'll say dot contains to keep it simple. Something like that. Oh. And that should work. So there you go. Everything is fixed. Let's give this a run and see what happens. And of course, we already have everything set up here before. Let's just change this. We can put it into JUnit 5, but let's call it, change the job name and call it page objects test. Page objects. Objects. There you go. And now let's go ahead and execute this. So it's pulling up our Safari browser, and the test failed. Why did the test fail? Hopefully you see it, but it's actually because we never open up the page. We have the page, but we never open it. So then how will it work? So we'll do sprint1 page.open, and that will actually open it up. And of course, we just need to go ahead and create this method. and that will be a simple driver that navigate that to. And then what's this URL here? There you go. Now let's run this. Test passed, and it was super quick, but you did see it pass. We can actually slow it down a bit just for us to see everything. We can do a thread.sleep, which is only good for demonstration purposes. Actually, there are two reasons to use a thread.sleep. Whenever we actually need to wait for some functionality in our application that depends on a sleep, or sometimes Selenium or Appium types strings way too fast into the field, so we can slow down the typing of Selenium by breaking up a string into an array of characters and then typing a character at a time with a little tiny, maybe 100 to 200 millisecond sleep in between each one. Those are the only two valid conditions to ever use a thread.sleep. In my production level code, I never require thread.sleep. That can all be tackled with a WebDriver wait and expected conditions. So we added that just to make sure that it slowed down and we can actually visualize it. Let's give this another run. And of course, now it requires this exception, which is a little bit annoying, but let's go ahead and do that. Cool, there it goes. Submit the form. Oh, see, and that's excellent. I'm really glad that happened, because I was actually thinking how this assertion here is actually really horrible. I try to keep it simple, but it's so bad. And you could see that it passed because all of our pages here do contain ultimateqa.com. Doesn't really matter what page we are on. So what we should do instead is get a better assertion. So once you fill this out like this, and then you click the submit button, what happens is you're brought here, right? And so instead, why don't we actually look for a good element? Why don't we get the title of this page? That'll be much better and more stable and not as bad as we just created. So let's look here for title. Let's do like this. There you go, title, there you go, much better, right? So let's grab that. And let's come back here, and instead, let's do driver.getTitle contains, and then we're going to put that in here, get rid of this little part, and get rid of this. There you go. That looks much better, much more improved. And did you see that our test wasn't even submitting? We can actually take a look. Let's come back here to test project. We're going to come back to reports. We're going to look at our JUnit 5. You can see we actually have some failed executions. And that's also really good, because now I'm getting to show you how failed executions happen here. And if we look at our page objects and come here at this failed execution here, should fill out form. This one failed. And then this one here, this was our last one. You can see we're typing in here, find element submit form, and then get current URL, which was totally fine, and it should not have been. So let's go ahead and rerun this test, and now it should perform everything. And also we did not submit, and you can see exactly why we never submitted the form. But first, let's go ahead and run it to see a better failure be a test that doesn't work. All of our tests should always be tested to make sure that they actually don't work. And so this is happening for that purpose. And so give it a second. You can see the 5-second timeout here happening. And now there you go, our test has failed and we should get an excellent exception. Look, check that out. Assertion should see home page, which we didn't. We expected true, actual was false. And so that failed because we didn't see the home page. And then if we go back here and look at our brand new execution, that's right here. And getting the title, you can see that this returned this value. And now let's finally fix it and get our test to pass. So we're gonna do here, find element by ID, and actually click the button. There you go. Let's give this another run. Fantastic. And our test has succeeded. So that's all there is to it. Congratulations. We just wrote our very first test using page objects and TestProject Java SDK. We are now ready for complete full automation.